Welcome back to Web API Tutorials. I am Venkat. In the previous video, we have seen how JWT authentication is working. Okay. So in this video, let us see how we can use multiple JWT tokens in single Web API application. So with this, we can also get to know the default JWT authentication versus named JWT authentication. Let's go to our project. So this is the JWT authentication we have configured in the previous videos. Sometimes you might see this add JWT bearer with name given. We can say this one is a default JWT policy. Okay. When we give name here, we can say this is a named JWT policy. Okay. Suppose Google login for Google users, something. Google users. Okay. So this policy will be used for Google users. This is the name of this JWT policy. If you want to use one more policy, we can use that here. So this is one policy and this one is another policy. And here login for Microsoft users. Okay. Like this, we can add any number of JWT policies. Let me copy this and paste it. Login for local users. Like this, we can add different policies. Okay, these are different policies. And if you want to use separate private keys for all these policies, we can modify those. JWT secret keys. Here you can see we have a JWT secret. So let's rename it Google and this is for Microsoft and this one is for local. These are the three different keys for three different authentications. This one is for Google and key for Google, and this one is for Microsoft and this one is for Microsoft. This one is for Google. Okay. So we have created three different keys and we have created three different validation schemes or policies for three different logins. Okay. So now how we can use these different policies in our controllers. Okay. So you can see this is our controller and there is no clue that which policy this controller is using, right? So let me run this now. The only difference for the previous demo and this demo is this has only named policies. There is no default policy. Okay. This one has all named policies, no default policy. This one is running and this is our Angular application. Let's click on get all students. So you can see we are getting 500. So authentication scheme was specified and there was no default challenge scheme found. So it is saying there is no default challenge scheme found. So that means application is looking for default challenge scheme, but we did not define default challenge scheme. We have defined only named challenge schemes or policies. Okay. So if we have created a named policies, so that means application is looking for default policy. In the previous video, we have defined default. So now there is no default. All these are named policies. So if you have only named policies, not default policies, okay. So you need to provide that name. Copy that. Suppose if you want to use this local, go to your controller and here you can provide authentication scheme. Authentication schemes equal to, so login for local users authentication scheme I want to use. Okay. So I have defined this controller should use this JWT authentication scheme. Now I am running it. So it is running and let us go here. Let us click it. You can see this time we are getting 401 unauthorized. So the controller we are calling has some policy, challenge policy defined. That's why it is saying you are not logged in. 401 unauthorized is nothing but you are not logged in. Let us log in now. Click on login. What happened? Okay. So here we have modified the keys name, right? Here also when we are generating, we need to provide different keys. For now, let us give the local secret key. Okay, I have given local secret key and I'm running it. It is running. And let's go here, clear it. Click on login. Login worked. You can see we got the token. Now we got the login response and click on get all students. We got the students response also. Here are the students. Here if you check, so this one is the token passed to the backend. This is how we can use different JWT policies here. Okay. So now let us use some other policy in. So let's go to Microsoft controller. So here I want to use Microsoft policy. Let me disable this course. So here we will use the Microsoft policy. This one is the policy for Microsoft users. So like that. So in this one, in Microsoft controller, we need to use this one. Okay. This one is not required now. So this is the Microsoft controller. And here if there is any method, HTTP get public action result get return OK off. So now if we want to access this method, so we need to authenticate with this particular policy. So now I'll show you. Okay, instead of having it, let us modify the login controller to have multiple policies. In the login DTO itself, let us add the policy name. So this one is required. Now based on this policy, if before that we can copy it from here. So these are the three keys. And here, so these are the three different keys. This one is not required now. If model dot policy equal to local bytary key. So now I will assign key equal to this one, local key. Else if model policy equal to Microsoft, sorry, this one is not required. Now so what I did, I'm just reading all three different keys, okay, and based on the policy I'm taking that particular key. So or else instead of reading all the keys and converting it, when we are reading only, we can directly do that. So let's do that. That's the best way. So define that. So here when we are reading only, we can do this. Okay, let me cut this. That's a Google one. Okay, and when we are reading only, we can assign it, and it is a Microsoft key, and it is a local. We can remove this. So you can see here, if it is policy is a local, we are reading local key. Policy is a Microsoft, reading Microsoft key. Policy is a Google, we are reading Google key. Okay, so now we need to pass this policy from Angular application. Okay, this is clear now. Let us go to Microsoft controller, and here we are using this one, and let's go to Angular application. This is our Angular application. Let's put a policy. So policy I want to use is a local policy. Okay, now it will generate the token with local policy. We will try to call both the endpoints, Microsoft endpoint and local endpoint. Okay, but local endpoint will succeed, but Microsoft endpoint will not work. Okay, so now this is a local endpoint. You can see that here. If it is a local, it will use the local private key. When it is validating with the local private key for Microsoft, it will fail. Okay, let me run this. Okay, here let's add one more button. Microsoft. Okay, call Microsoft. Let's go here. Let me copy paste this method. Call Microsoft here. It's a Microsoft. Okay, but when we are doing both Microsoft and local, we are using same headers. That means this one, same token. So this time local should work and Microsoft should fail. Let's go to Angular application and declare it. Now let us try to access this one, 401 correct, and let's log in. Login is succeeded. You can see the token generated. Okay, now let's do the get all students again. Get all students succeeded. You can see all students came. Now I am clicking on Microsoft. So this time Microsoft got failed. You can see it is 401 because Microsoft is using different private key to validate the token. Okay, but this token is generated with local policy. You can see when we are sending the payload, we have requested for local policy token. Okay, we are using same local policy token for students controller and Microsoft controller. Students controller is working because student controller is using what? Local policy, login for local users policy, and Microsoft controller is using what? Login for Microsoft users. Okay, let's do the same thing with Microsoft policy. So now I will modify this policy with Microsoft. Okay, so now the token will be generated with Microsoft private key, and this will work only for Microsoft. Okay, not for students, not for local. Okay, now application got refreshed and everything is erased. Now I'm clicking get all students. It is 401. Microsoft also same 401. Now I'm clicking on login. So the token generated, but this time token is generated with Microsoft policy. Okay, now I can see the token generated. Now let me click on get all students. Get all students is using local policy. You can see this one failed. Get all students failed 401. Now Microsoft should succeed. Okay, here you can see it is succeeded, and this is Microsoft. Okay, so what we are returning, this is Microsoft. So that is how we can use different policies. So what we did here, we have added 3 different private keys. Okay, and in the program.cs, so we are reading these 3 different private keys, and we have added 3 different named JWT policies. Okay, this one is for Google users, and this policy is for Microsoft users, and this policy is for local users. Okay, so in our students controller we have used local policy, so you can use that using this property authentication schemes. Okay, in the Microsoft controller what we have used login for Microsoft users. Okay, and while generating the token, so we are getting the policy from Angular or end user. Okay, so if it is local, we are using local key, and if it is Microsoft key. If it is Google, we are using Google key. Okay, so you can see here we are using that key, dynamic key, and we are generating the token accordingly. Okay, so when it is validating, so it will work only for that particular policy. Okay, that is how we can use different policies, JWT policies in single application. Okay, with this we learned 2 things: using different JWT policies in single application, and also the difference between default JWT policy and named JWT policy. Okay, so from the previous video, in the previous video, if you have practiced previous video, if any of you getting the 403 error, forbidden 403 forbidden error, I'll try to show you why that is coming. So when we are generating the token, we have added these 2 claims, right? So I have added a role claim. So in the student controller, what we have? So we have super admin and admin. Okay, both are there. So in the roles we have added one of those 2. Okay, that's why it is working. If I delete this admin, okay, so this student controller now will accessible only for super admins. So what this person has? Only admin role. So that's why it is failing. Okay, let us test it now. Web API running, and let me modify the policy. It is a local policy. Application refreshed. Let me log in now. Token generated. Let me click on get all students. You can see it is failed. 403 forbidden. So it is failed 403 forbidden because so it got authenticated, but it does not have permission to access that particular endpoint. So let me add it back. Control Z. So I have added it back. And I have run the Web API application again. But I did not refresh the Angular application. So Angular will have same token using. Okay, same token. And let us see whether it works or not. Click on get all students. You can see this time it is succeeded. So that's because this one has the admin role permission. When we are generating, it is a admin role. Okay. So that's why it might be failing for you. For more videos like this, please like, share and subscribe.